Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I'm back with another band recommendation and an album review of the debut release of this particular band. This is a band you absolutely need to hear. A band that I came across just by chance. In fact, reading the review of this debut album in the Fistful of Metal magazine a few months back, I believe. And to be honest, at first I was a little bit kind of underwhelmed by the artwork and the band name. I just thought, okay, this isn't necessarily the most eye-catching or attention-grabbing stuff. But really, it's the music that absolutely grabs your attention and it grapples it to the ground and gives it a bloody good beating. The band in question here is DeathCollector. Now this is a little bit of an interesting band. You've got some pretty adept musicians here. You've got a legendary name from the death metal world in the form of drummer Andy Whale, formerly of Bolt Thrower and more recently Memoriam. And you also have a very adept vocalist as well in the form of Kieran Scott of Ashen Crown, another UK death metal band. A very good vocalist, very accomplished, very good vocal performance on this album. But this is actually an absolute monster. This debut album is entitled Death's Toll, and this really is distinctive but still original UK death metal, and it really does actually have that kind of UK death metal vibe. Certainly in Andy Whale's drumming there is a at times some tracks more significant than others, or more prominent than others I should say. You've got a very, very definable Bolt Thrower kind of sound there, in that kind of driving, charging drums. You just take a opening track such as the title track Death's Toll, tracks like DeathCollector or even Coerced Visions. They are seriously inspired by Bolt Thrower. There is no doubt about that. Another moment is A Taste of Ichor or Ichor. A real Bolt Thrower infused track there, but by no means is this Bolt Thrower or Memoriam rip-off or replication. This is not a clone of either of those bands. This is definitely an interesting band who do a very good take on old school death metal. And as I say, it's very much UK death metal. There's a real resemblance of Bolt Thrower at times, as I say, but also bands like Cancer, for example. There's also other moments that kind of remind me a little bit of old school Morbid Angel. There's other moments that kind of bring that Scandinavian, particularly Sunlight Studios sounding kind of Dismember or Entombed sounding death metal to mind. There is a little bit of that influence, definitely. But is that surprising? No. These are legendary bands. These are inspirational bands, defining bands and albums and sounds as well that have inspired countless death metal bands. In fact, inspired the entire evolution of the death metal scene ever since. And this album, Death's Toll, DeathCollector's debut, is an absolute belter. Really is. And over time, I've kind of grown to have a bit of a fondness for this particular album artwork, because I think really it's sinister as hell. It's really creepy, but at a distance, it's not necessarily anything particularly eye-catching. But up close, the more you look at it, the more I certainly think I could really do with that on a t-shirt. So, may have to look into that. But this is a great album. Not an overly long album. It's sort of in the 40 to 45 minute range. But it is just start to finish. 9 tracks? 9 tracks, in fact, of bludgeoning death metal. Modern death metal. Not quite modern in the kind of, loads of electro influence or incorporating synths or anything like that necessarily, but it is just up to date. Sounds good, sounds clear and audible, yet gritty and raw at the same time. So it's old school modern death metal. Title track kicks off the album, Death's Toll. Straight from the off, this is punishing death metal. This is riff driven, driving drumming, and Kieran's particularly gruesome, growling, vocal-driven death. Mental Hedonist, that has a real interesting kind of old-school vibe to it that really does bring to mind sort of old school Cancer for me personally. Title track, well, the band kind of title track, DeathCollector, is a particularly brilliant one. As I say, it really does have that kind of bolt thrower undertone there, which is no bad thing. It's just pummeling death metal. Coerced Visions, another great one. Terrorizer is a real standout track. It's a particularly good title. I don't know if it's a nod or an ode to the great Terrorizer. The bands with their, well, they've had so many breakups and reformations, and they've got some classic material, and just kind of seem to be chopping and changing members and coming in and out of existence every few years. But Terrorizer, a great band, so I'm not really sure if it's an ode to them or not, but it's an absolutely brilliant track. Sort of 5 minutes of pretty nasty death metal, but seriously groovy stuff. This is start to finish the sort of album that you can consistently headbang along to. This isn't a overly technical album by any means. You take a track like Terrorizer, for example, there's not a huge amount of technicality there. There's a little bit of intricacy, maybe, but it's actually just straightforward, easily digestible, easily palatable death metal. A Taste of Ichor, Ichor, I'm not really sure how you actually pronounce that, but it's a freaking great track. Eternal Expansion, another good one, but you get two brilliant tracks closing the album. You've got Revel in Gore, and then the slightly longer, again, kind of brings that Cancer vibe to mind, Rearview Guilt. Brilliant album, start to finish. Particularly excellent drumming on this album. Really masterful stuff. I'm a massive fan of Memoriam. Always mention the fact that I'm such a big fan of that band. Freaking love them, guys. Love Bolt Thrower, absolutely worship Bolt Thrower. But I have to say, I do kind of miss Andy Wales drumming a little bit. So, bit of a shame that he's no longer in Memoriam. But actually, you know, credit to him. He's carrying on, giving the death metal world, or giving death metal fans, metalheads in general, what they want, which is Andy absolutely smashing the kit and just driving on like a war machine. We've got some great guitar work there throughout the album. Really nice guitar tone. I have to say, it's not quite the, I think it's HM2 pedal sound of the Sunlight Studios or the kind of the Stockholm death metal scene. Not quite that. Not quite Asphyx, Drone, but it's something kind of in the middle. But it's got that UK death metal flair. There's that kind of difference in there. But you have to hear it to know what I mean. Probably getting a little bit too into it, but very good guitar tone, and the thick prominent bass tone is always welcome. I do like to be able to hear an audible, heavy, thunderous bass. And of course, Kieran's vocals over the top. That guy's got a pretty nasty vocal approach. It's not quite as clear as some death metal vocalists. It might not be a George Fisher, but he's certainly on par with a lot of pretty brutal death metal vocalists in the current scene. But honestly, start to finish, this is a great album. If you like Bolt Thrower, Cancer, Morbid Angel, if you like the more sort of modern death metal bands as well, your Entrails, for example, or Coffin Mulch, Celestial Sanctuary, then you're going to really enjoy this album. This is definitely one to check out. Death's Toll by DeathCollector, the debut album. Tracks you must check out then. The title track, Death's Toll. You want to check out DeathCollector as well, the band title track, and Terrorizer. Absolutely brilliant, start to finish. Thank you very much, my friends. What are your thoughts and opinions on this album? What are your thoughts and opinions on DeathCollector? Are you a fan? Have you heard them? If you haven't, I really implore you to check them out. It's well worth your time, well worth the hearing damage. Check it out. Thanks again, my friends. Do feel free to like and subscribe. Please do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good, heavy things. But above all, my friends, take care and stay heavy.